Come to this prestigious institute and speak. I have spoken here before, and I have spoken many times at your Rajagiri Academy or the institute. When I was asked to pick a topic, I thought we will speak of something relevant, and I know most of you must be trying to manage a lot of things at the same time. Hence the topic, time management. I invite you to think with me on a few concepts that are not normally used when teaching time management. So don't expect me to give you tips on how to write a to-do list and things like that you can read from books. So what is time actually? We talk about time, right? What it is time? Have you ever sat to think? What do you really mean by time? How do you figure out that the time, you can always, it is related to something, isn't it? Right? We know the time is going because the sun is rising and the sun is setting in the evening. Then we know that something is happening, and right. So this is something that we need to think a little deeper. Right? And I invite you to spend a few minutes with me in thinking a little bit more about this whole phenomena which we call time. And now, if you live in a country in the northern hemisphere, then of course you have a different perspective of time. Right? They have very clear seasons, right? Spring, summer, autumn, winter. What are the seasons here? And if you ask anybody, what is the best time to come to Sri Lanka, you wouldn't know, right? You come anytime, it's a good time to come. And our perspective of seasons, we don't have a season, right? Now it's a little hot and we are all complaining, and then next week it will be raining, and then we have forgotten that we are, So we are different. And because we live near the equator, right, we don't really need clocks, isn't it? So we say, when you wake up, it's 6 o'clock, and when it is noon, and when you see your shadow touching your feet, then it's 12, and then in the evening, 6 o'clock, it's dark, right? So we really don't need, we have a rough idea of the day without watches. I think these things are influencing the way that we think. It's far more than what we think, right? And also conceptually how we approach time is different. Now, we in this part of the world, especially the South Asian region, we are thinking of long time spans. We are talking about sansara. Right? It means if I can't marry the person this lifetime, maybe next time, Right? So there's always lot of time ahead. And we have spent a lot of time. So that's why we think cyclically. Right? We can't escape from that kind of influence. And in Hindu philosophy, we are talking about Kalpa and Yuga, and we are supposed to be in Kali Yuga, right? This is the last era of that world cycle. So our time cycles are much longer than the northern hemisphere. So all these things have influenced our way of approaching time. It's very interesting. We have no very great reputation to be very punctual, but there are things that we are so punctual, right? Now we are arguing whether we should have the Aurudu Nakata at what time, right? It's a major controversy, It's about timing, perfect timing, right? We don't come to work on time and everything, but we want to start the kitchen on time, right? So there's a different perspective. If you have ever been to Dalda Maligawa Kandy, do you know that in the evening there are 2 puja hours, right? Why? when Vimal Dharma Surya, Kirti Sri Rajasingha, when he, Vimal Dharma, one of the kings, right? He came for the evening Gilampasa, but he was late. Monks at that time were far more powerful. King doesn't come, it doesn't matter. Our boss is Buddha. So they did the Buddha Puja, and then king said, I'm very sorry. Yeah, you better feel sorry, you didn't come here on time. We can't change the time. So he said, can I make a second offering? Yeah, it's okay, go ahead. And that's the second puja they have, still the tradition. Because time is important. Now next time you go to Kandy, go the time, but then they have this key change. You know, when they finish the puja, they bring the key from that Palleha Buduge to the main entrance, and then, you know, I have watched it many times. By the time he brings the key, the other person is ready exactly at the same time, that big, silk handkerchief kind of thing, to wrap it. It's just like clockwork precision. So if you give importance, we are punctual. Otherwise, we take it very easy. Because I think they are coming from a very agricultural kind of background. Agriculture doesn't require, you have to harvest today, it's like that. So there's a slightly bigger cultural, geographical influence to timing. Then there's another dimension to time. Both are at a train station, right? Who must be feeling time flying fast, and who must be feeling time is not moving at all? What do you think? Huh? The one on the left, right, must be thinking, right. Now you have probably gone through this period, in your life, and right, remember, right? See, so there's a psychological aspect to time, right? And by about 3:15 you will be wishing, Deepal, why don't you finish, because we have to go to the polar, right? It's a psychological time. So time is now, on one side, there's a bigger philosophical aspect to it, then there's a geographical aspect to it, then there's a cultural aspect to it, and actually there's a psychological aspect to it. And not only that, there's biological aspect to it, right? Some of you must be very good working in the night. Some must be, not so good in working in the night. You want to start early. And on the day, you might feel different times, you have different energy levels, right? Which is your body clock. And so there's a different connotation to this time. And of course, there's chronological time, which we measure with the clock, right? So it's far more than what we think is just time. And another dimension of time is, it's very interesting. If you have exposed, to a retired person, pensioner wanting to do something, they have a lot of time to plan, you want to write a letter, they will do a draft and then, do that. Now, so supposing you are planning to take leave and you come to office on the last day. I'm sure you must have gone through this experience. You finished everything, right? Haven't you done that? How did you do that? Because you can allow either the work to expand or to contract depending on the time. It's very interesting, right? And so we talk of this whole concept of time management. All of you, when you were young in your studies, they would have been taught you have to learn to manage time. I've been thinking, can you manage time? Now the management paradigm is, there is a manager and there's a process and there's an outcome. Traffic is hopefully managed by the traffic cop, right? Ideally, when he manages traffic, traffic should flow smoothly, right? Production manager manages production, so there's efficiency. And business managers well, so you have profits. Now, if you take the same paradigm, can you apply that to the time? Is there a manager? Is there a process and an outcome? Can you distinctly identify three? It's not that easy, right? So, my proposition is, time is only available to those who live. Otherwise, there's no time. If you're dead, there's no time. So time is life. Life is time. That's why we call it lifetime. So this is the fundamental idea that I want to explore with you today. Right? Time is life. Life is time. And so managing time is managing life. So the moment you take that attitude towards this, your perspective of time management changes. The most precious thing for all of us is our life, isn't it? We will do everything possible to save our life. If life is the most precious thing, and time is life, or the life is the time span between birth and death, that is the most precious thing that we have. In that case, every nanosecond that we live is we are spending our life and we are spending time. Now we have together spent 15 hours of this day, 27th of March. And if you are spending your life doing something which is your most precious thing, how should you do that? Right? Most of you are either connected or economics, right? You must be either economists or connected to economics, and you are telling about managing money and things like that, no? Right? So how do you do that? Most precious thing you have to spend very well. So that's the point that I want to drive in the next few minutes. Let me share a few lessons that I have learned and that has influenced me. There's a famous Japanese saying which is called Ichigo Ichie. In Japanese, ichi means one. Ichigo Ichie means one time, one meeting. This is a very deep Japanese concept. What they say is, this might be the last time that I meet you, which is possible. And none of you can give me a guarantee that Deepal, you will stay alive till you finish your lecture. I can very well be drop dead at that moment, halfway through. So this can be the last time that I see. Now if you are putting that attitude to a moment, your whole approach to that moment will be different. If you have ever gone to a hospital to see a person in the ICU, how do you look at that moment? Isn't it? Even a slightest response to you makes a big news. Huh? When I spoke with him, he moved his small finger a little bit. He tried to open his eyes because you're so attentive. Because subconsciously you think this might be the last time. Now if you take that approach to life, you will live completely different. A friend of mine, she was 8 months pregnant and she was taking care of her father. You know, elderly parents, it's not easy sometimes, you lose your temper. So he's in the upstairs or he lives downstairs and she lives upstairs. So one day, while taking care, father said something or did something and he got angry, she got angry, and he said something to the father and then went up to bed. But again she thought, if my father would die tonight, he will remember me not as a daughter who cared for all this time, but somebody who was rude. So she came down and had a nice chat, spoke with the father and went. That's because she brought this whole concept to that moment. You may be having problems, arguments with your spouse in the night, but in the morning, before going to bed, give you a full smile, which you always gave. Let that be the last frame in the memory, because it might be the last time. So let's extend this a little bit more, right? And once on NHK TV, there was a documentary. They were interviewing this man, actually not this man, somebody like him, who is making baskets out of bamboo strips. And this guy said, I have been doing this for 40 years. So this host asked, 40 years doing the same thing? He said, yes, 40 years, same thing, same type of baskets, yes, same type of basket. Don't you get bored doing it? He asked, what do you mean by bored? He doesn't know the word boring. Then he said, it may be similar, but every one of them is a masterpiece. Have you been to our museum not as a student, not as a parent, but otherwise have you been to our museum? How many have been to the museum not as a student, not as a parent? I invite you one day, take some time and go to the museum. You will now appreciate, you didn't appreciate when you were taken as a student by school. You didn't enjoy when you took your child, right? Now you go. Look at this comb. Ladies, you know what a comb is, right? Now a comb doesn't have to be such a masterpiece, right? Can you see our thinking at that time? Right. You want to do a masterpiece. Why? You are doing it by spending your life. So if you are spending your life doing something, it got to be a masterpiece. I have done this speech, I don't know how many times, but still even last night, I wanted to get ready. I in fact called her and asked, what is the aspect of your screen? Is it square or horizontal? I wanted to be perfect, right? And then I came here, I realized it's horizontal and we try to manage. So that's because I want to do the best. Who knows, this might be my last presentation. I want to do a masterpiece and die. Right? If you have recorded, then you will say Deepal's last presentation was done at Central Bank atrium. Wow, what a fantastic experience. You may not enjoy my talk, but I have to enjoy myself because I am spending my most precious thing, which is life. So you bring that to whatever you do. Right? Do it as a masterpiece. At my home, I wash dishes in the evening, and I do it as serious as when I'm working as a CEO. Why? I'm spending from the same account. I don't know how much balance left. So we enjoy even the slightest menial thing like washing a dish. I already have seen Japanese tea ceremony. How many have seen the Japanese tea ceremony, either real or on video? How many have seen? When I ask, please raise your hand. Doesn't matter, right? I'm not a teacher or something. Have you not seen? No? Right. I don't think we have time to show you because it's such a long process. Please do a Google search, YouTube search, and ask for a Japanese tea ceremony. Right? They take such a long time to make a cup of tea and offer, right? Which is coming from a Zen temple. And I was in Japan on a program for some time, couple of months. And I asked, why do you bow down when you're offering something? I hope you remember there was a Japanese monk in Colombo some time back, and people, when they offer something, he would bow down to the person who offers. Why do they do it? Because there's a Japanese belief that in every one of us, there's the potential to reach the highest that a human being can go up to, which they call the Buddha nature. If you believe in creation, you must see the God nature in the other person, because God has created you and the other person in the same way. So you must see divinity in the other person. When Hindus, when they eat, there's a little prayer that they pray. And in that they say, Aham Brahmapam Brahmavi, means I am the Brahma who created this, and I am experiencing as the Brahma. So Japanese person, when he sees the other person, you see the potential of a person. Now if you take that attitude, I mean, your whole life changes. The person in front of me has the same potential that any human being has to rise to the Buddhahood. So they respect the Buddha nature in the other person. Do we see the same potential in our colleagues? Ask yourselves. Right? Believe that every other person has the same potential. He may be so, not as bright as you, but he has the potential. And this drives the thinking. The most important person right now is the person in front of you. Isn't it? If I fall, who will come to help me? It's you. This morning I was at a function at Shangri-La, and I was driving back, and at Kolpiti, there was a bus in front of me, and bus slowed down just after the American embassy, and two young men jumped out of the bus, and one person fell. He was not seriously injured. And there was a lady on the road, and he said, Enna Putayano, ask Tualmadra. Now who helped? One who is in front. Not his mother, not his father, not his girlfriend, anybody. So the most important person is the person in front of you. And the most important task is what you are doing now. Of course, you can choose either to listen to or sleep, but that doesn't matter. But for me, this is the only task that I can do. And the most important moment is this moment. Past, gone. Future, you don't know. Right? So this is the only moment. You just bring this to your work, and your life becomes so simple. In one company that I shared this concept, Ichigo Ichie, they said, when you are treating customers, apply the same principle, one customer at a time. The most important person is in front of you. The most important task is what you have to do now. And most important time is this moment. And if you are spending your life and doing something, do it great. Within a month, they reduced their customer complaints by 75%. I included this concept in a program that I did at Sri Lankan Airlines. It continued for several days. And the manager who was coordinating this on the third day and came and said, Deepal, something very interesting happened. I said, what? He's a good Christian. He said, this morning, before leaving home, we were praying together, and after that my wife said, you know what? You have changed. Now those who are married, if your wife says you have changed, you know the feeling, right? You say, what do you mean? He said, no, you now listen to us. This is within 4 days, right? He said he started practicing Ichigo Ichi. In office, he stopped talking while checking emails. He stopped talking to people while doing something else. Gave 100% to the person. So you resolve the issue then and there. You become more productive. So you bring this whole attitude. You're spending your life doing whatever you're doing. Enjoy what you're doing and give your 100% to it. Everything will change. And let's come back to Sri Lanka again. In fact, after the war, I wrote an article and I said we should make Adams Peak, Siripade, as the symbol of the national flag, because if it is a mountain, and if all people can go and say this is a holy mountain, isn't it a fantastic phenomena, right? But nobody can see a footprint, right? Everybody thinks there's a footprint, right? Those who believe in Abrahamic religions, they say it is Adam's footprint. Hindus think it is Shiva's footprint, and we think it is Buddha's footprint, right? So most of the people who go there are Buddhists. And those Buddhists here, I don't know whether you know, we have only 2 gathas, 2 stanzas to worship when you go all the way, right? 16 miles, and you go and you have only 2 gathas to worship. I was thinking it's like a kind of anticlimax, no? You spend 16 hours, 16 miles to go, and then 2 gathas, and then you come back. Then when I was researching on this, then I picked up a book, and I found in that book alone, there were 629 Tusarane Kavi that people used to sing along. That made me think. You have only 2 stanzas to go and worship. But to sing along, there are 600 recorded in this book. I don't know how many more. Then I asked, where else we have used Kavi? Then I realized, every single task that we did, we had Kavi. Karatta Kavi, Pal Kavi, Patal Kavi, Bambara Kavi, Nelung Kavi, Paru Kavi. So whatever the profession we had Kavi. Do you have Banku Kavi? No. Because they knew it is the journey that is important, not the destination. We think we will be happy only if I reach the destination. What's a guarantee that you will reach the destination? I used to show that video after Corona. I stopped showing that. An AGM of Baroda Bank in India. He got retired. He must be a very important AGM. He was invited to the boardroom, right, on the day of his retirement. There were some flowers, and then he started speaking. I'm really looking forward to my retirement, and I'm so grateful to so and so, so and so. And the next sentence he started, and he dropped dead. He couldn't finish the sentence. You go to YouTube and say Baroda Bank, AGM, diet, funeral, pension, you will see that. So you don't know whether you will reach the destination or not. So therefore, give you 100% to the journey. Your life will be far more simpler and happy. Why? You figure out how to enjoy the journey. If you start complaining, there is so much you can complain. Then you will be unhappy. You are drawing from the same account. You don't have a separate time account which says this you can use for to be happy, this you can use to be unhappy. No, it's only one account. You don't have a capital account and a current account, all that. There's only one account, that is life. So, shouldn't you be happy every time? Right? Even if things go wrong, something will happen. It will change. Who knows? Sometimes some things happen, right? We think it's a bad thing that happened to our country, this whatever economic crisis. I think it's a good thing that happened. Otherwise, we would never realize that we have been living beyond our means. Isn't it? There was a consultant. He had come to do some work in a bank here. And the bank had negotiated him so well, saying, we are bankrupt, we don't have dollars, we can't pay you the full amount that you ask. Can you come at half the cost? He loves to come to Sri Lanka, so he came half the cost. I invited him to dinner. I took him to, what's that, Kotte, Huh? But that place where they have massive conference or something, sir? Monarch Imperial. And he looked at the car park and he said, Deepal, now I'm thinking whether my client described me a different country that I've had, right? So we can't go on like that. So that's a good thing, right? So then what happens is, if you approach your life that the journey is very important, your whole perspective changes. Your relationships take a different way to look at. Not worth upsetting. Not worth getting upset. Because you don't have a separate account where you can, okay, right, this 5 hours I can be very unhappy. Because I have another 5 hours that I can use to be happy. No, there's only 5 hours. So now we talk of punctuality, and we think Japanese people are very punctual. They are punctual because they know that life is time. When you are not punctual, you're wasting not your time. You're wasting the other person's life. So this is out of deep respect life that they are punctual. So without understanding this concept, how can we figure out why are they so punctual? We have so many lifetimes too. And Ichigo Ichie is written here also in Pali, but we don't read it the same way. I don't think you will guess that. Every time when a man dies, what do they write? Anicca Vata Sankhara. Huh? Right? That is the same thing, Ichigo Ichie. But we never think like that. So if we think that it is our life that we are spending, then if it is the most precious thing that I have to spend, my attitude towards it will be completely different. Everything is depending on your attitude. So time management, therefore, starts with your attitude towards life. I'm not here to tell you all the things that you can read from books. Right? I want you to start feeling that you are spending your life. And if you are spending your life, you will figure out how to get the best out of it. And time is what you do with it. It's very important to understand. Time is what you do with it. It doesn't mean that you have to work all the time. You can choose what you want to do. And coming into a little bit of practical things from a very philosophical background, my invitation to you is, if you want to manage time, approach it holistically. You can't be a good time manager in office and a bad time manager at home. You can't be a good time manager only by yourself. The whole organization has to be a good organization to manage time. You can't be a good time manager unless your family members contribute to the same thing. You can't. Right? So, getting everybody in the family to appreciate that time is life is very important. One day, I do a lot of executive coaching, and I was coaching a top finance head of a big corporate. So I was trying, she said, my biggest challenge is time management. I said, let's analyze how you spend the day. So she said she gets up at 5, and then she said, I prepare some breakfast, and then I wake up my children. I said, okay, why do you have to wake them up? No, otherwise they get late. I said, what happens if they get late? No, then I get late to come. Why? No, I give them a lift to come to college. How old is your child? So I can't remember. I think one is O-level, the other one is grade 9 or something, 8 or something. So I said, do you have a clock at home? Yeah. Can your children, set the alarm of the clock? Yes, they know how to do it. They know how to read time? Yes, they know. Then why should you wake them up? Can you see? So I was driving the point, because the child has to take responsibility for his timing. I said, one day, if they don't wake up on time, you leave them home and then go to office. That's it, only one day. After that, they realize that there's consequence. One manager asked his young sales rep to come with him on his way to Anuradhapura. Come and stay at Nugagoda near the boatry. I'll pick you up at 6:45. So he came at 6:35. He waited, 6:45. The new recruit was not there. At 7 o'clock, he come panting. Good morning, sir. I'm very sorry I got late. Yeah, don't worry. I came here to pick you up at 6:45, and 6:45 you were not here. So therefore, I cannot pick you up. You find your own way. He didn't give him a lift. Do you think he will ever get late after that? It's a very interesting way to teach. So if the organization itself is driving punctuality as a discipline, then everybody will know things will start here on time. Because we respect each other's life. Some very interesting thing happened here next door. When Anagarika Dharampal was here, and there was a governor, he had asked him to come and, meet him in an afternoon. So he came, he waited for half hour. And still the governor hadn't given him the time to meet. So he had asked, why? No, he's taking a nap after lunch, I say. So he ate half an hour of my life, my time, so I asked him to go and sleep again, and he went. Same thing. So it's not a artificial thing. If you see, I'm respecting the other person's life, right? You don't need to be rule-driven to be punctual, right? So look at your family and get everybody to contribute to living a managed life, so that you manage your time very well, right? At our home, this is the time that we wake up, this is the time we go to bed, this is the time we leave home, right? And let people all be serious about timing, right? And in Sri Lanka, you can't predict how long you travel. But with Google Maps, you can plan, right? So I checked half an hour. You wanted me to come at 2. I was here at 1:58, right? And so the stakeholders and your relationships, the social life you live, and of course physical and mental fitness, both are important to manage your time. If you don't look after your physical health, then you cannot be efficient, right? How many of you are closer to 40? When I say closer to 40, below 40, closer to 40, and 40 to 50? Okay, right? So you are around 40, right? Yeah, please take care of yourself. I'm coming from an insurance company. You know, right, at what time, what age of the life that people claim? That is between 40 and 50. Because that's the time your responsibilities are very high at office, responsibilities are very high at home, therefore you naturally get more demands than you can manage, and you tend to neglect your health, right? So please look after your physical health. Still no guarantee, right? But still at least you can be sure, you can be happy. It's like an exam, no? If you don't study and go, then you feel very bad that I didn't study. So at least you have taken care of, right? You have a better chance. So that's all what I wanted to say, because I wanted to finish on time. And if you ask some questions, we can spend the balance time productively. So all what I wanted to tell was that that time is life, and what you do with your life is what you do with your time. So if you take that attitude to life, and whatever you do it as if you're doing it for the last time on earth, you will end up doing masterpieces. And every day you'll be creating a masterpiece from all your life. Then you'll be different in your life. And that's the life that has very little regrets. Your relationships, it will flourish because you give your 100% to the other person. It's very difficult to give these days because there's so much of attractions, distractions. And enjoy the journey. Journey is more important than the destination. Destination you might reach or not. It doesn't matter if you enjoy the journey. Okay, I'm ready for answers, criticisms, questions, anything. I have so much to speak on this topic, but I wanted to give one central idea, and then we'll have a little discussion on this. Please feel free to ask questions. I might be able to answer, I might learn from you. I'm ready to engage. Yes, please.
How would you deal with a person who's a perfectionist?
Yeah.
And wants to take all the time to arrive at a perfect solution.
Right.
But then there are timelines in which you have to work.
Right.
How do you balance that?
Yeah, I think that's a very good question. You heard the question, right? How do you deal with perfectionists, right? Yeah, sometimes you have to tell, this is the time, and you know the standard deviation, right? So if you try to go till the right-hand end, you will never reach. I remember a personal experience. We were working on a big systems project at Eagle. I was the sponsor of the IT project. And in that there were two perfectionists. And if you have worked on an IT project, there's no end to the perfection, right? You can keep on improving, right? There's still no end. That's why Microsoft always sends a new patch, right? So one day I said, whatever it is, tomorrow we are going live. And we went on live, right? Because what happens is, you can keep on improving, but the world doesn't wait for your improvements, right? So you fix the deadline for certain things, right? I work almost half my life for multinationals, right? In multinational systems, there's nothing called time for perfections. That's the time, right? You have to submit it on time. It's a bit like you, right? You ask all the banks and all these things. I have, right, half of my life I worked under regulated industries. So we submit the meet the deadline, right? So there may be a little mistake, and you can still do it, If the constitution can be changed 22 times, everything else can have a correction. So I think it's important to say, right, this is what is perfect. What is perfect? So, but if you if you take this attitude of I'm doing a masterpiece, you give you 100% and you do right the first time, Now we think this is a Japanese concept, right? Let me ask you a question. Again, let's go to the museum, right? You go to Anuradhapura Museum. And in Anuradhapura Museum, there's a muragala, right, out of whitish stone. You go behind and see, the backside is also polished, right? And on that, even the nails are carved, so detailed. Now in Anuradhapura, do you see rejected carvings? Ask anybody in archaeology whether they have found rejected ones. You know, you do halfway, you make a mistake, and then you do. You don't. It's first time right. Okay, Deepal, that is too long ago. No? Right. Have you ever been to a දාන ගෙදරකට ගිහින් තියනවද? ඥාතියෙක්ගේ. දාන ගෙවල් වල, if I speak in Sinhala, it's okay. Right. දාන ගෙවල් වල උයනකොට රහ බලනවද? නෑනේ. දාන ගෙවල් වල කෑම රහයිද? රහයිනේ. ඒගොල්ලෝ රහ බලන්නේ නැත්තේ මේක වියනකොට මම රහ බැලුවොත් මට මේකට ආස හිතෙයි කියලා ඉදුල් වෙන්න හොඳ නැති හින්දා රහ බලන්නේ නැහැ. හැබැයි ඉවරවරුණෙන් පස්සේ අපිටත් කන්න හම්බ වෙනවනේ දාන ගෙදර ගියාම මේ හාමුදුරුවෝ විතර නෙවෙයිනේ. Perfect නේ. First time right. Right. Because they know there can't be a mistake. Mr. Sunil Vijay Singh, you have heard of Mr. Sunil Vijay Singh, right? He related a very interesting story. He said at that time he was the chairman of ETF board, right? And this is pre-computers, right? Computers were there, mainframe. Central Bank had one, and Bank of Ceylon had. Then ETF also had a computer, mainframe computer, but not desktop. He had to do a document which has to go to a cabinet paper. And at that time, there was no senior typists or stenographers, and there was only one girl who was from this. Those days, you get these girls from apprenticeship board, right? Now it is NITA, right? And he called this girl and said, I want to get this done. Now, this is type. Do you know how typewriters work, right? Some of the younger people, have you seen a typewriter, right? Right. I'm just right, because some of these examples are, I'm a very old person, right? When you talk of typewriters, those days when you typewrite, there are mistakes. Then you have Tipex, you do Tipex corrections, and you first do a draft on a demi paper, and then you take it to the boss, and then corrections, and then do your final one. Now he said, I don't have time. I have to take this. You can't make any mistakes. This is a cabinet paper, and cabinet, those days cabinet is very small, you had only 20 ministers, so everybody knew what is the cabinet. Today cabinet meetings are like this, 200 people, I don't know what it is, right? So it is very serious, and because very small number, every cabinet minister must be going through all the papers. Right? Today, I think a lot of people may not be reading because they know somebody else would have read or something, right? Comfort of being in a large group is that, I don't think President can ask, what do you think, because how to ask, right? There's a lot. So you see the quality drops, no? So he explained all these things, and he said, this girl did it perfect, without a single mistake. Because he knew the time, he knew the importance. So how you get perfectionists to do it is say, you can be perfect, but no point becoming perfect and late, right? Perfection has a punctuality also as a perfection. I hope I clarified with some examples. Yeah, that's a very good question. Yeah, we have a few more minutes. Any other questions? Now it's 3:30, we can go till 3:45, you said, no? Yeah? Oh, you want to stop? No problem. You have a question? No? Right. Deepal, can I go to the polar? Yes, yeah?
I had something, I don't know if I can agree with what you said, perfectionism and late. Now, what we see is we give some deadlines, and if we don't receive the perfect information, that has a lot of other implications.
Yeah.
So in that situation, it has to be perfect.
That's what I'm saying. So the perfection comes from your attitude to what you are doing, right? It cannot be in isolation. That's why I said, you can be a good time manager if your family members are not committed to managing time. Right? So it has to be in the entire organization you are going through, because it's like this. I always say teamwork is if my output is your input. Right? I may not like you, it doesn't matter. Right? I have to provide it to you in the right quality at the right time. So that's what I'm saying. If everyone is sharing this concept of, right, I'm doing, they have to be proud of what they're doing, right? So then you don't want to make a mistake because you want to do a masterpiece. Can you see? So it cannot happen in isolation, right? It's an organization-wide discipline, right? So now I went to a Toyota factory in Nagoya, right? And I asked this girl, now you're making so many cars. Are there any defects? She asked, what do you mean by defects? Seriously. She didn't know the word defect. I said, no, when you make a car, you don't sell because there's a problem. No, sir. We make cars, all cars, good cars. No bad cars go out of this factory because it's in their DNA, right? So sometimes we have to figure out what is the critical one, right? If the information, right, can you extend the deadline? I know some of these things are not sometimes possible, but it cannot happen in isolation, right? It's an organization-wide discipline. So what I said is more at a leadership level, right? I totally agree, right? Now, half of my life I worked for multinationals. No chances of sending incomplete reports and things like that, right? You can lose your job. So we work so very well. I'm on 7 boards, right? And I can tell you, AIA board, I don't have to worry about a single mistake. I have been on that board for so many years, I haven't seen a single spelling mistake on a board paper. That's the commitment, right? And it is an organization-wide thing, so you expect everybody to be like that. So it's not an island. That's why I wanted you to appreciate that bigger picture. So we have to inculcate it in a much deeper level, at the software level. Japanese people are punctual because they respect the other person's life. Now we only think Japanese are punctual, why can't you be punctual? It doesn't come from that, you see. So, I mean, okay, if you are a literary person, right? Sarachand is supposed to have edited Singapore 100 times, right? I just published a book just before COVID. Sibyl Singh drew drawings for that on Dhammapada for children. I edited it 15 times and still I found a mistake recently when I'm going through the second edition, because this girl was doing, I told her, this is the last book that Sibyl has drawn. Sibyl Singh, right? And this cannot have a mistake because this is for children. Adults, no problem, right? So I first got her to appreciate the significance of what I'm doing. So important thing is getting people appreciating the significance. Significance is not only accuracy, but on time. See, planes don't take off unless all the checks are signed, however much you say. So that's again a discipline, no? Now I'll give one example and then I'll stop. Everybody is complaining about Sri Lankan Airlines, but very little about what Sri Lankan Airlines good. That's an airline, touch wood, we haven't had a single accident. It's a hell of a record for a small country like ours. Once, after a repair, one technician has suddenly remembered, I'm not sure whether a small ring fell through or not. Now everything is done. Before the engine started, he went to the chief engineer and said, I'm not sure whether it fell or not. Now you can't find it. They had to dismantle the engine, send it to Rolls-Royce, England, at an enormous cost. And they found that ring was there. When this came back, and there was a big discussion in the organization, what should we do? Should we punish this guy for not following a particular procedure? If he had followed that procedure, that ring wouldn't have gone to the inside of the engine. They decided no. If you do that, then what happens is you send a message, don't tell if something goes wrong. Because he said that, it saved the airline a major danger. In planes, a little ring going to the wrong place and in an engine can meet an explosion. So it is a holistic thing. That's why I said approach it holistically. I can go on telling stories to tell you, recently at a board meeting, right, they had missed out for 6 months, something has been happening. It was a serious mistake. But I said, the fact that they came up and said, excuse me, we made a mistake, is for me, that is what is important. Because as directors, you depend on what the management tells. Right? If management doesn't come and tell, excuse me, there was a mistake, then we don't know what's happening. Right? So that's why I'm saying, these things are holistic things. There are no quick fixes. A lot of the time, we think we are trying to manage things by fixing bit of bit. My entire philosophy of developing organizations is developing people. When you develop people holistically, people have enormous capacity and potential. And I invite you to discover your total potential and go for that. And in that, enjoy the journey. Thank you.